everybody. We are now live on Facebook. We think if Zuckerberg figured out how to turn the switch on, and
Ouch.
for sure
Burn.
YouTube. Yeah, let's.
I think a reindeer bit some cables up in Umeå, where the data
Where's
center is.
where's that? Alaska?
No, it's in Sweden.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, this is Jordy Comas. I'm one of the co-producers and one of the hosts of the show. Tonight, I'm going to throw it to Taylor since you already heard him. He wants to explain something about Sweden. I don't know. That one went over my head. Go ahead, Taylor.
Facebook. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Taylor Leibman. I used to be a political professional, and now I do stuff in neighborhood revitalization. Which is everything is political. Let's be honest here, but yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Happy to always be on the podcast, even if it's 9 o'clock at night. It's good to talk with my colleagues about.
We're right at 65 seconds, and there's already a knife in my back. I love it. That's got to be. I'm going to keep.
It's going to be a night of zingers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's so late. We got to keep it lively. So, Kate.
Yeah. Actually, really quickly. So the Facebook data servers are in Umeå, Sweden, which is like really far up north, and they do that so they don't have to air condition them and cool them
off. For the people Googling this at home, what's that city again?
I think it's Umeå, UME, and then an A with a O over the top.
Wow, Taylor, you're amazing.
I feel like I should be buying a vow or something.
Yeah.
I can't chat you guys.
You can. So Taylor demonstrating that I guess he's never paid attention to all the instruction booklets I made about how to use this platform. There's private chat, which is just us, and on the right there's chat, which shows what's on YouTube or Facebook.
Now I've got
I never gave you the tutorials.
I can't even see y'all.
Okay, so Taylor's our representative from the technological generation. Kate, would you like to say hi and introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. And I like how you so neatly excluded me from the technological generation, like swiftly and perfectly. I still count as a millennial, depending on who you ask. Thanks a lot, Jordy.
I know that you have no issues with it, so it was a joke that would have landed with the thud.
Yeah. Well, I made sure the thud was loud and, got noticed. But yep, I'm Kate DePasquale, Pennsylvania and DC person. So I'm really excited when Jordy invites me to his club full of cool people. And we get to do things like this. We do have a couple big things to talk about tonight. But Jordy, was there anything else you wanted me to hit just in my intro?
No, that's great. I mean, I do love to point out that, you're literally in the corridors of power or close in Washington, but you're like 100% grassroots rural PA. Is that accurate?
That's pretty accurate. I mean, it's also like a nice thing to say about me.
I meant it as a compliment. Yeah. Totally.
No, really grew up with you kind folks. I mean, Dwayne, you could almost claim to have raised me if you really wanted to, but I think most people would find that pretty funny.
I think there's going to be some follow-up questions. Maybe not now, but at some point.
I mean, Dwayne's not old enough to have raised me, let's be honest, but we did have a lot of good times field organizing in rural Pennsylvania, and those are my roots. And you know what? Those are roots that you really can't shake or change or live anyway, but once they're yours. So yeah, I'm excited to pass notes about what's been going on from the rural PA perspective.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you so much. And I just, before we bring Dwayne on to say hi, I just want to thank Kate again for coming on very last minute and saving us from the, there should be some kind of word for like awkwardness, male awkwardness of just the three of us talking about the Women's March, because we didn't not want to talk about it, but we didn't want to be three men talking about it. So.
Awkwardness. Let's not let that be the word, but I'm going to enjoy it, since you used it. And yeah, it's okay. I'm happy to jump on. I always enjoy our time, but most of all, Just remember, Jordy, I wake up early in the morning, which means
I think that we've clearly demonstrated that this is an anarchist collective. I cannot control things without the voluntary participation of others, and the time will change that when we do this. Dwayne?
Yes, hello. I'm Dwayne Heisler. I live in rural Pennsylvania, outside of Bloomsburg and Catawissa, PA, in Columbia County. I am the campaign coordinator for SEIU Healthcare PA, that's Service Employees International Union. So that's my union call, but I'm also very involved with the Democratic Party. I'm on the executive committee for the state party, as well as the chair of the Progressive Caucus. But also work, as Kate knows, with quite a number of rural progressive organizations as well. So it's kind of the trifecta: progressive organizations, the party, and unions.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, y'all. So we're gonna tonight, I'm gonna do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we're gonna talk some about the Build Back Better Act and some of the issues around strategy and messaging around that. And from our perspective, we may disagree some, which is great. You know, we don't always agree. I love it when Anat Shenker-Osorio, I was re-listening to one of her podcasts, Dwayne, and she's somebody that I know that you and I both get a lot of inspiration from. But she said she was talking about the difference between what you message to the public and sort of conversations, you know, kind of in the back room. so this could be a bit one of those. So Build Back Better, and then we want to hear from Kate a little bit about whatever she wants to share. She was I think in Washington, D.C. Is that correct, at the march? It wasn't like one of the cities on the outside of Washington?
No, exactly. And I know that Northeastern Pennsylvania Action Together had some great rallies as well. And if you look on their social media, you're going to see just how well attended those were. It turns out that events were well attended all across the U.S., but certainly here too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Harrisburg had activities. These are all kind of in our footprint. Lewisburg had one that had 55 people, and Claire Samuels, who organized that was her first thing she's ever organized. So we're setting up that she may come on at a later time and talk some, because I think that's always fun to hear that story from somebody. I was surprised, honestly, because she's very active in the community, but she told me that's the first time I've ever organized an event.
Really? That's incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome. Williamsport had an event. Scranton had a big event, which was the Action Together NEPA. Am I forgetting anywhere in our footprint that anybody else knows about? I didn't know if there was something in Lehigh Valley. Probably, I just don't.
Well, that's just a chance for you to invite angry comments for being left out.
Yes.
Anyone to left out.
Do we have to pay you for this good marketing advice?
Yeah. Well, we don't want anyone to be left out, but we do want you to send Jordy an angry comment if you were left out in any fashion. It's very important.
Absolutely.
We'll really even give you a cell phone number.
Yeah.
Speaking of angry comments and marketing, of course, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, please like our those pages. We all know that that's how this works. If you go to www.barnstormingpa.org, you can support us one time using PayPal, or you can become a patron. The T-shirts are this close, and we have a really lovely design.
Local designer.
Yes, local designer. Both will. Well, yes, there's the logo design and the T-shirt design. Both are.
The logo was not local, but soon.
Right. I was about to say that designer. That's okay. I'm way in the weeds. It's somebody who's very close to Taylor, who will be living here at some point. We have on our other, both on YouTube and on our audio, if you're listening by audio, we have a whole series of candidate interviews coming out. The first one is already up with David Spurgeon, who's running for Commonwealth Court judge in Pennsylvania. We also have Lori Dumas, who's also running for Commonwealth Court, Maria McLaughlin, who's running for Superior Court, and we'll have, Judge Lane?
Judge Tamika Lane, yeah.
Tamika Lane, who's running for Superior Court. And we're going to get back to that. I see Taylor maybe wanted to say more about that, but two other housekeeping, or maybe three. I don't know how many fingers I'm holding up. One, also, if you're listening, the Hub for Progress has one of our summits, a network summit, a summit of the network that is virtual. That's this Saturday. It's just 10 to 11. So we know people are tired or burned out. It's because we've been doing so much, but it's important to plug in to each other and to connect. You can find information about that if you Google the Hub for Progress on our website, and you could come to that. And so one of the things is there's a preview of that with Daryl Lewis and Penn Garvin, who are the two main facilitators for that. That's also out there on the interwebs, both as video and as audio. And if you haven't connected to Daryl or Penn, they're both tremendously talented grassroots leaders and people with a lot of movement knowledge and experience. And so hearing them talk about why these things are important is really great. So that's a lot of housekeeping. Did I forget something,
and I don't
Cheryl?
want to throw you off of your precarious finger counting system to keep us on track, but I think it's it bears focus. The event itself is what date, Jordy?
Thank you. Saturday, October 9th, this Saturday from 10 to 11. And in fact, we moved it. Originally, it was the 2nd. We moved it 5 or 6 weeks ago because there was the call for the Women's March, and we didn't want to have to choose between them.
And so that's focused on what, educating people about how to do organization building. Like if you had to say it in one sentence for people.
The Network Summit is for people who are interested in the Hub for Progress or already have been part of it. The Hub for Progress is an organized network of people and groups across rural Pennsylvania. And it's all about how do we connect to each other and build more capacity so that all of those people who are working on important issues, whether it's reproductive freedom, environmental issues, economic justice, all of that, we all care about all of them as progressives. So the Hub for Progress in this meeting is to talk about what we're doing and how we can support each other. There is going to be one session that's very much for like, if you're newer to it or newer to organizing and kind of want to learn some of the important steps to go from passion to action. And then there's going to be breakout rooms. There's a separate track for people to talk more about what their group's doing and how we can mutually support each other. Thank you very much, because clearly I missed the first paragraph of that news story.
So for people who want to network within rural organizations in Pennsylvania or progressive organizations in general in Pennsylvania, they would benefit from showing up to your event on Saturday, even if it's on a session by session basis instead of all day. Are you doing this all day, Jordy?
No, it's just an hour. It's 1 hour. So it's not all day. So it's like, instead of it being a smorgasbord of things, it's very much like a truffle. It's like a lot of dense goodness. So they're going to, at the beginning, there's just some sort of general like connecting and talking about what the Hub is. And then we're breaking into 2 tracks. One is kind of like if you have questions about the Hub and organizing and want to kind of get up to speed. And the other one is talking about how we support each other and what the Hub can do. And then at the end, there's going to be like 3 minutes. That's about what the plan is moving forward. And where we go from here. And then we'll leave it open. If people want to stay and network, that's fine. But the program part is 10 to 11, 1 hour.
One last bit of housekeeping. Dwayne, what's on your shirt?
Yeah, so very early on, John Fetterman was the first one to announce that he was running for Senate. And I got this shirt. It's my Legalize Weed for PA shirt. And I have to say, I'm kind of known for my Zoom calls and having button-down shirts and, usually very well dressed for all those things. And the day I got this T-shirt, I threw it on and I had my normal Greater NEPA, that's Northeast PA, Greater NEPA Regional Roundtable. And I got on and the first thing, they couldn't see what was below on my shirt, but they saw my collar and they're like, Dwayne, are you okay? What's going on? You're not wearing your collared shirt. And so I had to stand up and display my Legalize Weed for PA shirt, which is basically kind of like a fundraiser for John Fetterman.
Absolutely. So John Fetterman's running for Senate. Wait, do we want to do the Build Back Better first, or do we want to do the Women's March?
No, we're gonna do Build Back Better. I have one more thing that was on my fingers and I forgot. No, but this is important.
I knew it.
And it actually relates a little bit to Fetterman. So this is a new rule for me, and I'm curious what you all think. If any of us or anyone is going to be talking about 2022, especially if you're a candidate, the first part of your sentence or the first part of your paragraph of talking to me must be about 2021. This is an opportunity year. There are very important elections. That's one of the reasons we're doing these interviews with the judicial candidates. One thing that I don't know if people are as plugged in about or as aware of is what happened on January 6th was just a really the tip of a really awful shit iceberg of right wing, basically the worst kind of right wing organizing, and a lot of it happens in rural places and in rural PA, and some of the candidates who are on the other side. Some of their language is pretty clear that they're running as kind of that wasn't that bad, or kind of the pro-insurrection side. And I've been playing with the phrasing the slow coup, in the sense that it's become an article of faith among some people, sadly, and some politicians, that 2020 that the election wasn't won by Biden. And here's the headline: 2020 is over, Biden won. So we have those elections in Pennsylvania, and then we also have local elections for borough council, city council, mayor, township supervisor, prothonotary, judges of elections. So anyway, that's one of my new rules, and I don't know if you guys want to give it an amen or not, but if you're going to talk about 2022 in Pennsylvania, the first thing you ought to be talking about is voting in 2021.
It's more like a headline than a
new rule,
than a housekeeping.
Yeah, we're out of housekeeping now. We're in new rules.
Okay, all right. Any other new rules?
we need some incidental music, like there's our incidental music.
Okay, let's get into Build Back Better.
All right.
Do you want to introduce? Who wants to introduce it?
I said I would, so I'll take a shot, and I'll probably make some mistakes. So sharpen your knives. Biden was elected. Generally, Biden and the Democratic Party ran on a very bold platform that was about fixing, in my mind, all kinds of lingering problems that come as a consequence of both the forms of rapacious capitalism that we've let run wild in the United States since about the 80s, long-term underinvestment in government as providing important services to lift people up. And just kind of a general scarcity mentality. We can't do this because we can't afford it. We can't do this because we can't afford it. And it had a lot of important pieces, which I think Dwayne might know more about. So that's what they got elected on. And basically, there's to do this is because the majority is so narrow in the Senate with 50 votes. There's this thing called a reconciliation process or bill, which you can do, which says you don't need to meet the filibuster-proof threshold in the Senate. So to do that, they split this big agenda into the infrastructure bill and what's being called the Build Back Better bill, which has a lot of these things that are about people versus physical infrastructure. And the deal all along on the Democratic side was we'll get the Senate to pass both of them, or at least one of them, the infrastructure bill, and then the House will vote both. But the idea was generally to have both the infrastructure and the Build Back Better be a joint thing. And we all know that Manchin and Sinema are the two senators who've been the most interested in trying to delay this or bring the number down. And you hear the numbers tossed around. Generally, the whole human side was at like $6 trillion. Initially, the progressives, both in the Senate and Congress, have come down to about $3.5 trillion, at least as of this weekend. But that's where we are now, is whether the political strategy that the progressives have argued is these two things need to be linked. And they had Nancy Pelosi agreeing with that. They had Chuck Schumer agreeing with that. And some Democrats want to separate it. And they want to just do, they say, let's do the bridges. We need to do that. It's very bipartisan. And let's put a pause, is something that Manchin and Sinema have said on the human side. And the progressives have been pushing back and saying, no, both of them together. And so, in a nutshell, the question is, in terms of strategy, is, will both go together? Or will the holdouts like Manchin and Sinema and then all the corporate interests separate them, so we end up with bridges? But in my mind, nobody has childcare or college paid for, or sort of elder care help to be able to use the bridges. So that's where we are, and a lot of people are basically talking about that. Should we link them or not? Is 3.5 trillion, 1.3 trillion, all of that. So that's my effort to bring us to this moment without getting too lost in the details.
Well done, Jordy.
Yeah,
well done. I have to say that there's a lot of pieces to this, and the average American, I believe, is very confused and doesn't know what's happening. There's too many details that are missing, and so I'd like to maybe just take a moment and talk about what we're talking about. the Human Infrastructure Bill, also known as the Reconciliation Bill, also known as the Build Back Better plan, is the plan that Joe Biden ran on and the country elected him to do. And any talk about that we can't afford it just doesn't make sense. And the people who are making those arguments are people who don't want it to begin with. Because if you look at the Bush tax cuts and the Trump tax cuts, when you add that up, it's $3.4 trillion. So we seem to be able to afford it when the Republicans in Congress want to give it away, right? But not when we're actually paying for things like affordable housing, clean air and water, clean vehicles, small business access to credit, investments in markets, paid family medical leave, an extension of the Medicare coverage gap and filling that gap rather, dental and vision for folks on Medicare, the child tax credit, long-term care for seniors, universal pre-K for 3 and 4 years old. How about child care for working families? How about tuition-free community colleges? What about investing in VA facilities? And I haven't even mentioned healthcare, home healthcare workers, which is in crisis right now. We had so many people die from COVID, and one of the reasons why is short staffing. And right now, if you're making the decision in the United States about what to do with your parents or your grandparents, and you come to the realization that you want to keep them at home, and you apply for home health care, you're going to be put on a waiting list. And we say, okay, well, I'm on a waiting list. What does that mean? That means you and your family have another tough decision to make. And I've talked with quite a number of people who have been on that waiting list and found that they couldn't stay on there, and they had to actually have their loved one go into a nursing home. I think that people should be able to live with dignity and live in their home for as long as possible, but it's not funded. The fact of the matter is that there's many home health care workers who make $10 an hour or less. They don't have health care themselves. They don't have any kind of vacation time. It's no wonder that they get burned out and that they're leaving. And so this would address that as well. So I just want to mention that anyone who is really talking about the money being too much is not being sincere when they come to the table. Plus, it's also a matter of over what period of time. Like, this is over a 10-year period of time. There's all kinds of ways to fool with that and to keep those numbers there, but it's really about what's in the package. And you will not hear Manchin and you'll not hear Kristen Sinema say anything about what they want to cut out of it, because the moment that they do, they will be held accountable for that. And so they just like to talk about the numbers because they don't want to be the people on the line saying, hey, yeah, we want to do away with childcare for working families, right?
And Dwayne, I just want to do one point on the cost, and then I'd actually really like to hear Kate's perspective on this, because since you're in DC, and I mean, I feel like all of us are viewing this from like a frosted window, basically. Like it's very not, it's untransparent, and it's also like changing by the minute. And I'm curious to hear your perspective, but I just want to say one thing really quickly about the cost. In today's dollar, if we do nothing about climate change, by 2100, we're facing $1.9 trillion annually. And it just in the cost of that. If we do not mitigate against climate change, if we do not adapt, the cost of that is tremendous. And this is $3.5 trillion over 10 years. These investments will be absolutely critical, both the human infrastructure portions and also the climate infrastructure and transportation infrastructure are going to be vital to bridge us to the future. So sorry, I really want to hear Kate's perspective.
There's nothing to be sorry about in sharing that. I think that you've been additive in a really important way to this conversation. And it's true that there are provisions in the Build Back Better Act that address climate concerns through tax credits. It's true that it's not cleanly an infrastructure in the traditional sense bill, and it does address tax concerns, but also like closing tax loopholes, which is something that we all want and talk about a lot. some very smart provisions that will make our budget balance at the end of the day, things that make us financially solvent when we're trying to do these ambitious things. So for me, trying to pit the two legislative options or these two really important bills against one another, trying to say that they are at war for the same attention or taking up that oxygen in competition directly is, as Dwayne put it, quite disingenuous. It's not exactly the point you made, Dwayne. I'm not going to reframe you, but the point is, considering these to be contradictory to one another, or we're going to have to give up one of our children in order to save the other, isn't the best mentality for us to adopt in this very early part of Biden's administration, nor will it ever be. We're sort of forced to be more ambitious by the stakes. As you point out, Taylor, those stakes are really staring us down with respect to climate change. So really what we're talking about is the bandwidth, the ability to get things done on this short time frame, and what it really takes to get everyone on board as quickly as we need to actually get it done. So it's really about, unfortunately, those sorts of elements and logistics, and they are playing out before our eyes in this rapid, extremely fast pace. So it's also true what Dwayne highlighted earlier, that it's a lot for most of us, for most average Americans, to be on top of it completely and know not only what was in the bills when they were rolled out, but what will be compromised or what will be changed or what will be moved. And that is how this can be resolved on the time frame allowed. There will have to be some sacrifices and changes in order to get everything passed. So that means the number of dollars attributed to each program might change. And those are going to be difficult things. So citizens should feel empowered to reach out to their representatives and say, if something's got to get cut, not this, or make sure that this is a protected program, and take an interest on that level that's meaningful.
I don't think any voters who are sometime voters or even regular voters give two rats' asses about debt, about the number, whether it's 1.8 trillion or 3. These numbers are so big they don't mean a lot to people, and I feel like a little bit it's easy to fall, almost because of the way it gets reported. It's easy to fall into a trap of talking about, it's what Anat Shenker-Rosario talks about, talking about the recipes. You go to the grocery store and you're trying to buy brownies, and we're talking about the recipe and not the beautiful brownies on the box. Right. So what I was trying to say earlier, and I probably flubbed it, was if we pass the infrastructure bill and not the Build Back Better part, then we'll have a lot of beautiful bridges and a lot of broken people, because we have a lot of people who are breaking now from all of the heavy burdens that are put on them, and they're sinking. Right. And so people need the things that, Dwayne, you talked about, right? The free community college, adding different kinds of healthcare benefits to Medicare for other people, expanding home healthcare. All of those are, if infrastructure is important for the economy to get things from point A to point B, this is about getting people from where they are now, where they're barely keeping their heads above water, to a place where there's enough stability in their lives that they can be productive citizens. And that may mean slightly less on average in the stock market. And it may mean that people's stock portfolios go down a little bit, because we're moving away from squeezing as much as we can out of working people. But that's what we have to do.
I
I'll just say
I want to push back on that, because
no, let me finish. Let me finish. Because if where Jayapal and Porter are going, right? If we let the infrastructure bill die because we don't get what we want, I'm okay with it. The bridges can stay broken for a year.
Okay.
No, please. I think we're having the same thought. Go for it.
Okay. Well, I don't think that we should let the bipartisan infrastructure bill go, because that's actually one, in the, as a community and, revitalization person, that's the one that I think is going to benefit my work the most. All of that stuff, all of that investment into infrastructure is so sorely needed. And, you know, it does matter if you can't get from point A to point B. And like that is an issue of equity as well. And this is $60 billion in more in transit, but it's just $60 billion in Amtrak alone. And that's extremely important historic investment. The other thing that I would say is I think the frame that you just said, Jordy, about how we need to pass this and it's okay if the stock market doesn't do as well. If you think about when America has been booming the most, it is when we have had the greatest equity, like post-war. Unions are, you know, at like 40% density or something like that at the peak. When we invest in our people as a country, we are a much stronger country, and that's reflected economically as well as in our health. And then the third thing that I'll say is I think that it's a mistake on the Democrats' part to frame this as the bipartisan deal and the $3.5 trillion deal. That is just like, oh my God, can we call it the Build Back Better Act?
That may not be them.
Framings that just keeps going and going and going.
I'm going to let Dwayne, just real quick, Taylor, and then Dwayne, I'm going to do better at you critiquing me, which is, in fact, if you look at when the stock market grows, it's been under Democratic administrations for the last 30 years. So it's not, you know, that's proven. Dwayne, did you want to say something?
Yeah, just kind of quickly that, you know, first of all, number one, we can afford this. We've shown in the past that we can do it. So any discussion on settling that is basically you using the Republican talking points. And number two, we cannot afford to not do it. You know, I like to think of these two bills as infrastructure, you know, traditional infrastructure of building bridges and roads. Then the second part is making sure people can use it. Because people are not going to be able to use it if they don't have decent jobs, if they don't have good health care, if they don't have, like, if they can't get someone to watch their kid, they're not going to be on the road, right? Like, it's actually investing in people. And Taylor, you're absolutely right. The investment in people is going to bring back so much money into our economy, and the payoff is going to be huge. So we should be talking about it in terms of investment, not as money spent.
Okay, so we have Jackie Baker who gives a comment on Facebook. Jackie's awesome. She ran in 2020 for state legislature, and I know last Thursday she was at the PA Youth Trans Rally. Hi, Jackie. She said we need both types of infrastructure. That's right. Look, I agree, right? Like, I think we need both bills. I think that Dwayne said that I was reusing Republican talking points. I don't know whose they are, but right now, right, it seems to me that Manchin and Sinema are the ones who are in the way of getting both passed. And
every Republican, right? Let's not forget them. We can't put them on the side, right?
But what levers do we have over them? What levers?
Wait. You can't. Well, here, whether you have levers or not, you can't ignore the fact that every single Republican is like voting against this because they're trying to divide the Democrats, right? So we have to remember that part of it. Just like when it came to making sure that we had enough money to keep the government open, right? The same thing. They'd like to see it like go all to hell. Like you can't say that you're fiscally responsible and then push the button so that we go over the cliff. Unacceptable. So I just want to point that out, that maybe it would be nice for Mitt Romney to get on board with us, right? Or some other Republicans, right? Are there any moderate Republicans? If they are, I'm calling you out right now. Do something and invest in the people that you're representing.
Their ears are burning, and I made that face because I just discovered that I can put the social comments like on here. Call out the moderate Republicans, says Dwayne Heisler.
That's not what he said.
You were paying attention, doing something else, Jordy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dwayne. Didn't you just say we need to do something to moderate Republicans?
I don't think they exist, but you know, like for the albatross that's there. No, seriously, like, you know, yeah. I mean, we are so good. Why do Democrats need an opposition? We're good at beating up ourselves, you know, and only our party could pass like, you know, trillions of dollars worth of like programs for people, and somehow it's a defeat on our watch, and you know, which is just absurd. I mean, when's the last time we've had an investment in people like this? You have to go way back, right? Like it's really
war on poverty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really quite an incredible investment. I mean, it's an incredible time in our country that we have this opportunity. It's exciting that it's right in front of us. It's right there,
Yeah.
and I believe it's going to get done.
Yeah, and I'm going to just take this really quick opportunity to just talk about specific investments in Pennsylvania that could be made, and then I guess we need to move on. Amtrak is talking about restoring passenger rail service to Scranton. Do you guys have any idea what that means for
It's
Scranton?
wild.
I do, because I'm buying a house there. So let me tell you right now. So it's not only Scranton, it's also Allentown,
Allentown and Reading. Yep.
Well, and also Reading, which would connect through to the Norristown line and go into Philly, and it's also upgrading the rail service to higher speeds with Philadelphia and that whole corridor. So
And increasing the amount of trips from Harrisburg to Philly every day.
it's an incredible investment in Pennsylvania with this happening, which is just remarkable. I can't wait to book a train from my home in Scranton. And you know what? Maybe the first one is I'll just go to Stroudsburg for lunch. How cool would that be, right? Yeah, because there's stops along the way, Tobyhanna, and when you actually look at the routes, it's incredibly exciting. And the other thing is, like, how long will it take? Well, the estimate from Amtrak is once the funding is there, which is what we're talking about now, it would only take about 3 years to have all that up and running.
I'm just picturing Kate coming back, to Columbia County or other places, and she's able to work on the train, right? So she feels more, freer to come back as often as she wants. Maybe come to the Bloomsburg
Life changing.
Would it be? Or are you just making fun of me?
I'm serious. It would be life changing.
So I just want to give a shout out. Jackie Baker has another comment. My husband and I have always had to have one person stay home with the kids so that one person could work. No childcare, less income. Biden's rescue plan can help working people. The child tax credit has helped my family. I'm grateful. Yeah, I didn't want to dispute the numbers because I think you all are probably right about scale, but there have been other programs, the child tax credit. I was going to say even all of the 2 rounds of checks that went out because of COVID-19 did a lot. I think one of the reasons, I don't know the research, but I think one of the reasons that unemployment has lagged is because there's an awful lot of people who are finally able to not absolutely have to take the worst possible job, right? They can take a little bit of time, assess their options, maybe invest in themselves in terms of a certificate or college education or other things.
Yeah.
We should move on to the Women's March, but I just want to say this because I think I stirred some things up.
And I just want to put a pin on that. Making people work under the threat of poverty is immoral.
Yeah.
And having an economy where people feel comfortable to pursue opportunities that they think are rewarding, that is the economy that I want to live in.
Well, and in fact, I heard this on something else I was listening to. Actually, it might have been Anat Tinker. She was on I forget the name of the podcast recently, but this by detaching, if we could get to a place where healthcare is not tied to your work, how many people in their 40s, 50s, 60s who would be perfectly happy to maybe take a little bit less income or switch careers, but they're locked in, right? They're not doing the thing that they love, or they're not doing something where they might leave a lucrative career in one part of the economy and work on community issues or other things. Like it's an incredibly shackling thing for a lot of people because they have a spouse or they have pre-existing conditions is better, but that's a concern. So, and they even pointed out, I'd never thought of this, that employers like that, right? They like knowing that somebody from 50 to 65 who could maybe leave and take a lot of institutional knowledge and skill and organizational memory is tied in. And I feel a bit sheepish saying this, but if nothing else on this podcast, it's a chance for me to be sheepish and people smack me around. Of course, a lot of employers have an incentive to do that. Dwayne, do we need to talk Jackie more? We need to bring her on the podcast? Yes. Do we need to talk about her comments?
No,
Jackie
I just have to have a conversation with Jackie because I'm so excited about coming up towards her neck of the woods.
Oh, right.
It's a personal, Jackie, I'm coming up there, so get ready.
Awesome. Okay, so, but this is the thing, and maybe this is the wrong framing. I think this is what all of you all were saying. The idea that there's going to be one or the other is the wrong framing. And for sure, it seems to me that the inside the Beltway media are trying to paint it that way, right? That Democrats are going to have to make a hard choice, this or that. And I don't want them to either, but I am going to stick to my ground on this, that if nothing or a very paltry Build Back Better bill happens and it's not tied to the infrastructure bill, It reminds me of NAFTA when Bill Clinton in the 90s said, well, we'll do main NAFTA, and then we'll have side agreements that will cover environmental and labor regulations. And I feel like there's 100 other things going back to these long-term needs that the Build Back Better agenda fills, where time and time again, people like us who've been arguing about what a progressive society looks like are told, just wait your turn, just hold your nose and vote for Democrats, hold on, we'll get to that. And I'm sick and fucking tired of it. And I'm tired of the Democratic power coalition that's mostly dominated by the corporate ring of the Democratic Party going to power on my shoulders. And I have all the bus tracks on my back as a populist progressive Democrat. And I know that right now, maybe we won't get all that we want, but if the outcome of this is me feeling exactly like that again, and I think I speak for a lot of people, I'm going to be so angry. And that is the danger at the midterms. Not that we spent $2 trillion, but that we passed a shitty, paltry bill that leaves so many people feeling like Biden and the Democrats walked away from them. And that is the real danger that I do not think gets talked about enough.
So it's only a very small number of Democrats, by the way. I mean, when you look up, first of all, the Progressive Caucus has been amazing, and that's most of them. Like, they have really dug in and said, this was the deal. This is what we agreed upon the whole time. Now, the media at first was reporting about how the progressives were the troublemakers and holding things back. But when you really look at it, that's not the case. It's reversed. It's a handful of these Democrats, these more moderate Democrats that are actually holding it up. Just a few. There's not many. And so that's really what's happening. You have a very unified Democratic Party. It's incredible. I mean, when you think about when Bernie was running on some of these things and everyone was calling him crazy, and now everyone's on board, but just a few. That's where we're at. That's where we're at right now. And so I believe we can get there. And thank you, progressives. I mean, it's the progressives who are holding up Joe Biden's plan. It was his plan. That's what that he ran on. That's what he got elected to do. This is what the American people voted for. This is what they want. And it's time for not only that small handful of Democrats to get on board, but a few fucking Republicans to get on board too, for the people who elected them.
I quote, now if I got it right, Dwayne said a few fucking Republicans need to get on board.
Should we start covering the well, Kate, do you want to have the last word?
Well, I really do appreciate the energy that you're bringing into the conversation, all three of you, and what I really, if I could tie a knot on it, it's that you're right. We shouldn't be compromising before it's time to compromise. We should be asking for more for ourselves, but I do fully and resoundly reject the idea that we're not working towards the right goals. And this is indeed what the American people have asked for. We're working on getting it done. And I think maybe I'll just throw out like it ain't over till it's over. So I don't like the negativity, Jordy.
Kate, it is what it is. It ain't over till it's over. It is what it is. I love those idioms that are like a bunch of simple words. No.
What was that? Did you guys hear that that Nancy Pelosi quote about like, the final bit is when you never back down. He put this on Love It or Leave It, but she's I would not want to be in a boxing ring with Nancy Pelosi.
And I will also say somebody who
she's an action movie to herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
I very much trust her. Trust her to get this done and put
Jordy,
this
I think you would like this. I had a music teacher who would say to me, "You know what that sounds like? This sounds like one of those songs that sounds like that."
Yeah. Well, I want to say, because I've been on record being critical of Nancy Pelosi at times, I do completely respect many of her record and her skills. But she did say, and this is from a CNN piece that was written by Jayapal and Porter and Ilhan Omar, but they were quoting the speaker who in June said, this is Nancy Pelosi, there won't be an infrastructure bill unless we have a reconciliation bill, plain and simple. And I thought that was great. And I also think that, people who get really angry and frustrated with Democrats, like we're seeing here the difference between a moderate and an obstructionist. Joe Biden, I think, has always presented himself as a moderate or pragmatic. I don't care a lot about the label, but he's moved. Dwayne's little history lesson showed us that he's moved over time. And, that's fine. The thing is, an obstructionist is somebody who doesn't know what they want. And I feel like Manchin and Sinema and a few others, and all of the Republicans, Dwayne, you're right, all of the Republicans to a letter are obstructionists. And that's an important difference, right? there's lots of room for moderates. It's the obstructionists who I think deserve us to get more angry at them. So Kate, tell us about your Saturday. What was it like?
You know, there's nothing in the world better than being surrounded by so many people, just every kind of person, tons and tons of good people who all believe that abortion is real, should be real in America, and should be accessible to anyone who wants one. Moreover, not only is abortion all of those things, but abortion's a word we can use and should use, and kind of right now really need to use and need to use more. So I put it all that way because it really was heartwarming to see how many people were willing to be completely direct, completely transparent about the reason, the purpose of their attendance at the Women's March in DC. And, you know, really the point is, when you take away a woman's right to abortion, you're really restricting her right to live the life she chooses in so many ways. And I understand that for what appears to be a huge number of American people, but mostly American men who are not faced not faced with these decisions, and don't really have a reason to examine the purpose or the utility or the merit or the moral and ethical responsibility that they might have around abortion. I understand that those people are real in our society and making big decisions for women right now. So when this segment of the population moves to restrict abortion, what they're really saying is that they don't understand what it could be for in a woman's life, or what her life would look like if she didn't have it. And I was lucky to be in a place where there were a lot of other people there to say, no, it's important and it's necessary, and we're going to talk about it. And I'm kind of lucky to be in a room with, you know, a few people who are willing to talk about it. So I do want to bounce it off of
this digital room.
Yeah, it's a digital room, but it's our room.
Yeah, totally. I mean, one thing I really appreciated about what you said that I don't think I hear as much, but it's just saying abortion is not a 4-letter word. It's just a word. And I do think sometimes our language can get a little bit convoluted, right? To me, like, I think I saw some signs saying versions of this. We'll talk more about signs, but abortion is freedom.
Yeah, I think it really is a failure of imagination not to support abortion, not to support a woman's right to access it. I and a lot of people that I know who were raised Catholic, or people who, you know, are Christian, I have a lot of people in my life who really hope they'll never need an abortion. Really hope no one in their life ever is faced with that difficult decision. But want every single woman in their life to have access to it if it's the most appropriate decision for them. And that could be a health reason. It could be because you know that you're not in a position to start a family. It could be really any reason, but it's your reason, and it's not the governor of Texas's reason, and it's not your neighbor who could report you because he thinks that you had an abortion's reason, and it's not really anyone else's reason. So these are important things for us to grapple with right now before we have even more change, because change is important in our culture and in our country and in our legal system, but we've moved in the wrong direction. And I think American women and American people and American people with reproductive organs that are affected by this are especially concerned. But we're we're ready to deal with this, and we're ready to call it by what it's actually called. So I think that was an important focus at the March All Around America.
Is that kind of a newer approach for you in terms of thinking and talking about it? Let's use the word abortion and not shy away from it. The thing that we just highlighted, or is that something that you've been incorporating into how you talk about these issues for a while? Does that make sense as a question?
That makes sense as a question. I think that all of us are sort of a little more ready to take this up a notch. And so if that means no longer choosing our words carefully for people, that's one thing. But I think in this particular case, it really is about making sure that the stigma, the shame, and any of the other negative connotations around supporting abortion are removed. So this is important in the dialogue, but it's also important as a overall mood in this movement and for organizers as well.
I want to add that something that I think is hard to fit into a sign sometimes, but it's important, is these decisions that people make about their bodies and around generally around sexual health and reproduction, and especially around pregnancy, are so intimate. And when I say freedom, I mean what we all want is the freedom to make those hardest decisions, right, with our loved ones, with our chosen community, with our chosen circle of support,
medical professionals,
whether that includes people from the church or from your family. As a father of 2 daughters, one a transgender daughter, and having been with my wife since she was 20 and I was 18, it's important to me, looking back and looking forward, that my wife always had that freedom and that my children do. And so their freedom matters to me too. I mean, that's one reason why this is important to me and to speak up on it. I mean, I don't ever want to, mansplain or whatever. But I do think that's why the freedom narrative to me means a lot. And, I've known people who, for example, had a child they had a pregnancy where the embryo or the fetus was non-viable, was basically not going to live. And you cannot imagine how hard that is. You cannot imagine. And so all of these efforts to game this out that I hear, especially white men that Kate, you're talking about, because you're absolutely right. All of these laws are passed overwhelmingly by men. It's just just stop. You have no idea how difficult these things are. So just get the hell out of the way, right? And let those people have the freedom that we as all Americans should have to figure that really hard stuff out on their own. And it's just get the fuck out of the way.
Well, abortion rights are supported by the majority of Americans. It's been a solid majority for over a decade. It's been an impressive majority, and it keeps going up. So you're right. It's a certain segment of the population that has taken an interest in turning back the clock on women's rights, and this affects people broad scale because it removes healthcare options. So the impact on the trans community and the LGBTQ community is also pretty unsettling, and something that we need to grapple with right alongside this. But the focus that the rallies on over the weekend, mostly on Saturday, the focus that they held is important. I think it's very important for us to have focus on what we can do to move this issue. It's important now. It'll always be important, but we do need more protections that are solid legal protections moving forward. So I am really grateful that I have the support of each of you, and that this is something that each of you are considering, of utmost importance. But it is time to talk about it more, and so I do think that Jordy has kind of like a way to keep this a fun conversation planned.
We'll
Because
get there in one sec.
it really, it really is it is an inspiring thing that happened over the weekend, and it continues to be an inspiration. How many people came out to support those who have been disenfranchised in Texas.
Yeah, and just before we go on to that, I just want to put a pin in something here. I completely support all of this, and I like the framing of abortion as freedom. I think that's really just being bold with our language. I think something that I think really was so upsetting to me about the Texas bill in particular is that it deputizes citizens to go after other citizens. I think that's a unique attack on our polity. And I think that's like a very dangerous turn for politics in the United States to go into. Just expanding that into a whole host of other fraught issues that we're dealing with. I think that's a really terrible thing, a really terrible bill, and I hope that it gets repealed.
I think it is worth pointing that out. Even though I've managed to now discuss that dimension of the legislation twice now on this podcast, I will hit that point one more time with you, Taylor, because it's so serious. Being able to call in a $10,000 bounty on the head of a woman and not necessarily even have strong proof of a crime committed, not necessarily have really anything to make it more justifiable than hearsay. That is an incredible feat in our country, and a very uncommon move, even in something as contentious as abortion rights. So,
and if I
go ahead,
if I understand correctly, too, the Supreme Court did not weigh in on the constitutionality of abortion in this case. They just ruled on the constitutionality of offering like a bounty system. So it's offering a bounty system for something that is still constitutionally protected in America. If I'm understanding,
it's a little more complicated. It's a little more complicated than that, unfortunately.
Okay.
But what it does, you're right in that the Supreme Court was not able to strike down the specific bounty system. It's absolutely fraught, and it should continue. It is continues to be under legal examination. But this is one more sign that we need to turn the ship around.
Yeah, and I think I kind of wanted to say two things as we make a bit of a segue here. One is, what happens next? I'm sure that all of the people who showed up in Washington, the Women's March organization that organized that, the marches, and the people who came out. I know in this area, we talked before we started, in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I'm sure in other places. Part of what Dwayne did some research, 650 events across the country, which is tremendous. All of that, there will be next steps. And I think we all know, but it's important to say to our audience that, and Kate, you did such a beautiful job describing that experience of being with people and feeling supported. We take that street energy and we put it into batteries or jars or whatever, and we use it to keep things going, right? But one thing that is going to happen is, I hope Kate can join us, but we're planning another Barnstorming Roundtable, ideally with Kate, maybe with Jess Britton, who's been on, and Claire Samuels, who I mentioned organized that. And we might be able to get more into some of the details of the Supreme Court ruling and the weird things about Texas there. So that's just one small piece of what happens next. I hope that our guests will stay for a couple more minutes in our audience. We did want to do this thing. This is how this is going to work, I think. Kate took some great pictures of some amazing signs, and I poked around and found some others. So we're going to look at 6 or 7 of these signs, and we're going to try and start something here. We really want to lift these up, and their creativity. They're kind of the best of what People Politics does. Most of these are signs that people made and printed or They just show all of this. Anytime you go to a protest for a progressive or a lefty thing. So, and what I'd love to do is I'll put one up. We'll describe it for our auditory audience. We'll do the best we can. And then I'd like us to kind of throw out, if we were to be having something like the Oscars or the Tonys, what category would this be up for? And we can make up any category. They don't have to be the same ones, right? It doesn't have to be best song or whatever. It can be any category. And then we'll go from there, and maybe this will evolve over time, and we'll really do this someday. We'll have an award show for signs. So does it make sense what we're doing to y'all?
Did you describe the categories?
We're going to make up the categories. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do in live and in person.
All right.
Does that make? You with me? Because I
Come on,
didn't have
throw it up there. Let's do this.
I didn't have because Kate, I didn't have time to come up with the categories.
Quit teasing us.
I wasn't trying to slow you down, Jordy. Throw them up there.
Throw them up there.
Comes. Give me. I have to find the right Chrome tab. Oh my God, window.
Oh my gosh, Jordy.
Okay, there it is. No, look, don't give me a hard time. Okay, here's the first one. Gee, can you all see it? So this is a sign that says men shall not. Well, I'll let Kate read it. Kate, can you read it?
I thought you were doing a great job. I think you just got scared.
Well, you read it. I'll finish
Men
this one.
shall not rule parts they do not possess. Fallopians. 22. Abortion care is health care. Underline, bold.
I think it deserves explanation for those who are audio only. The men shall not rule parts they do not possess is clearly like a Bible verse. And Fallopians 1:22 is clearly the book and chapter, or the chapter and verse. And the abortion care is health care is a separate slogan.
Yeah.
So it's extremely artful and well done. And it was really
I'm gonna say it wins best category of adapted screenplay.
Yes, adapted screenplay. Yes, because there, of course, those of us who are good on our Bible knowledge may know that there is a Philippians. I think there is not a book of Fallopian, as far as I know. I'm going to rely on Kate here. You said you were a Catholic, right?
No, you're right. You didn't even need to be Catholic to know there's not a real Fallopians in the Bible. But you had it right.
I would say best use of, I don't know, like creative use of biology. Let's say that.
Okay.
Yes, I like that too, to create biology. All right, awesome. So now I'm going to try it. Let's see. I'm going to try and move to the next one if I can. What have I done here? Oh, here we go. Okay. Did it move to the next one?
Yes, you did scroll down. Nice work.
Oh, look, I have to go back and oh my God.
I can't believe this is your system, but as long as it is. If I knew this is what you were going to do, I would have set it up for you, Jordy.
I had to get Taylor to stop working on the budget for our business of barnstorming and go home to be ready to record. That's how seat of our pants. Do you want to read this one, Kate? Because this one.
I'd be happy to. It says,
Thank you, Kate.
All right, I'm gonna open quote. I'd call Abbott a cunt, but he lacks depth and warmth. And now end quote. And now you all know not only why the boys couldn't do this on their own, but why I had to read this one myself.
It's so good.
Oh, it's so clever.
Good. I mean, for me, it wins sign of the year. I mean, it's in that category.
I didn't even want to assign this a category because it's best overall for me. Yes. And you showed it second out of, I think, a few.
Listen, have you watched the Oscars? You never start with best picture. Yes, Taylor, sorry.
I think Sickest Burn is also it would win that category.
For sure.
Yeah, that's true. We did promise lots of zingers, and we did get serious about policy, and we did not, hit too many zingers. So we're going to let this sign carry a lot of that zinger weight. Yeah. And by the way, credit to all of the attendees that brought such amazing signs.
Yes, these first two, am I right, Kate, are from Washington, and you're the
ones I provided you are. So yes, exactly.
Yeah, excellent. All right, moving on to our next example. This one I saw a fair number of. Besides,
make it big anyway.
Both sort of handmade and also like printed that somebody put out there. So, does somebody want to explain this one? Kate, would you mind doing it again? I mean, we
That's okay. Yeah. So we are ruthless now. Act accordingly. I really enjoy that as a concept. Now that we are without Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we are now ruthless. But we are also now ruthless. I'm totally explaining a joke here, but
well, you have to. You have to
I'm
because
doing
some
that. But
because some people are only listening. You're doing a great job.
I understand. So this particular sign is a picture, like a stylized cartoon picture of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We are now ruthless not only because we are missing her, but because the stakes have been raised yet again.
Because they stole several court seats from us.
Well, I like the part about now act accordingly. I mean, it's a challenge, right? Like Ruth had done that for years, right? And now we have to act accordingly. Like it's up to us now. Like we are the ones we are searching for. I really like this messaging.
It's fantastic.
I was gonna say, like for me, this was like a pump up the jam. This was like a pump up for action. Like we are ruthless.
I also go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ruth Bader Ginsburg went to Lund University in Sweden.
Taylor, you get the Raz Award.
All roads lead back to Sweden. Was it because she didn't like artificial air conditioning?
What? Oh, okay. That's another callback. I don't know what I think she studied law there or something. I don't know.
I mean,
well,
Taylor,
I like the category that Jordy selected. Jordy, do you want to say what your category is for this sign?
Also best biopic, but I actually prefer the best, pump up for action or the best,
best call to action.
Best call to action.
I agree with that one.
It's the best bagpipe anthem to get the troops going. By the way, Taylor, there's the Razzes, which is for bad movies. You just got the best. You just got a Razz for the worst pointless tie-in to something about you.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like I normally win that award.
Okay. Kate, I need your help because I screenshotted this part of the picture you sent, and I was not 100% sure what stood out for you. Is it the guy?
I mean, they're all great signs. So
yes.
Would you like to read some of the signs since I've been reading so many? I don't want to take all the glory.
Sure.
I'll read one. I haven't.
Please, Taylor, go for it.
So we have. I mean, it's really a. I would call this a triptych. Really, it's the best triptych.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Keeping with our religious theme. Well done.
Yeah. So. On the upper left, we have women belong at the table, not on the menu. Then on the sort of the mid right, we have against abortion, don't have one. On the bottom, it's same sign, different decade. And then I think there's one or two in the back, but I can't read it. So I would say best triptych.
That's a great category.
Yeah. I looked at this probably for too long, but I was sort of interested. I was sort of amused with the guy who. It's probably because of when you took the picture, but he's the guy. There's a man holding the same sign, different decade. Seems like a man, and I love that he's a little bit ready to sort of jump out. Sort of Jack in the Box ally.
I don't think he would want to be described as a Jack in the Box ally at this kind of event. I think he would want to say, I sat down for a moment. I let the ladies take the lead.
Yeah. Marching for 5 hours.
But that's okay. No, there were a lot of amazing people supporting abortion rights, and these are just a few of them. So again, photo credit to them.
Mm-hmm. All right, this is one. This is a local sign that I saw that was in Williamsport, which, and thanks to Allison Hirsch for sharing this picture on the Hub for Progress. Dwayne, can you see it? Can you read it?
Yeah, I think it says same shit, different decade. So this kind of nods back to one of the other ones before, same sign.
Different century, yeah.
Yeah. So, different century. Yeah. So, so that kind of, when we hear that, we've heard that often. I mean, in the last few years, we've heard so much about the idea that I can't believe that I'm out here still doing this, right? And just when we think that we've hit the limit of that, then something else comes along and we're out there doing it again. It's like there seems to be no end to this today. So yeah, that's what that's.
So maybe this is best. I'm trying to say this in a nice way, but it's like
best deja vu.
Yeah, best deja vu, best syndicated show.
That's good.
None of these are calling me though.
Yeah.
Can we pass on this one and come back to it?
Yeah. One of the reasons I really enjoyed that, that did seem to be a theme, and I guess I don't have a great word for this, but compared to some issues, Roe v. Wade was 72, I think.
Yeah.
And in fact, I just popped in my head. Rachel Maddow did a thing like a month ago that the day Lyndon Johnson died was the same day Roe v. Wade was passed, and so a lot of the newspapers from that day don't make a big deal about it because they had the Lyndon Johnson stuff, which is just kind of an interesting historical thing. So this is one I saw in the Boston Globe, which I thought, back to our religious theme. Someone want to read it?
Sure. If men could get pregnant, then abortion would be a sacrament, and it actually has a.
It has a quote.
Yeah, who is it by?
Oh yeah,
Gloria. Is it Gloria Steinem? No,
Gloria Steinem. Yes, it's Gloria Steinem.
I can't quite read it.
Yeah, I can. It's a little small where you're saying it, but when I'm looking at it, it's definitely Gloria Steinem. I'm not sure if I understand that.
That's a nice touch.
I don't know if I know enough about religion to understand that one. Can someone explain it to me?
Well, I think I'll take a stab at it. The idea of it would be a sacrament. I think they're saying that it would be sacred. It would be untouchable. You couldn't do anything about it because it would be, untouchable. I would say.
I just remembered.
It's
acting.
It's also a requirement.
Right. Yeah. Right. I was thinking also.
Here I am explaining jokes to you again.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
I didn't actually get it either because
I think I get it.
My religious traditions don't have sacraments.
Yeah, this is the two Unitarians who are showing our colors. I think it's like right for the Catholic Church, it's like, oh well, if there's an ejaculation, the sacrament's sacred, and they're sort of like an ejaculation is like almost a life, right? So it's a little bit like saying.
All right, now you're mixing whole issues,
yeah.
but
all right,
it's not only that it's sacred, but it is a requirement. Whoa! You just
I know. We're gonna end with this one because I'm trying to get off of the sacrament one because it's obviously going nowhere fast. Okay, last one.
Well, we didn't give it a category.
Yeah.
We'll just pretend like I never should.
Best use of an original quote.
What was Dirty saying about all of us being able to overturn him whenever we like? It just doesn't seem true now.
No, I didn't. I never said anything like that.
It was the beginning of the episode. I think it's recorded. I think we can play it back.
Yeah.
No. Oh, Jackie says she's Catholic and she got it. Listen,
Jackie, I got it too.
Jackie.
Jackie's. I think she's saying she got my explanation. So Jackie is my new favorite.
No.
Clearly, what she
Can Jackie hop on for the last little bit here?
Yeah.
She needs to explain this to us.
We'll bring her on. We'll bring her on. Don't cloud the issue, Taylor.
Well, let's read what's up on the screen. Abort Abbott. Girls just want to have fundamental rights.
I like this one a lot.
I think it's brilliant. I think the category is best song reference.
Yeah,
it's got like 5 things going on.
Best original soundtrack.
Best original soundtrack. It's got like 5 things going on because it's also got alliteration with Abort Abbott, and the song shout out, but it also ties to the issue nicely about fundamental rights.
Yeah, it's a callback on the previous conversation.
That's a great one. Well, we are.
If we have to abort Abbott, does he have to go to another state? Is that how that works? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know. I had a Mexican,
different country.
Maybe
he could go to Hungary.
I had a Mexican
maybe
friend.
he can go to Sweden.
I don't think they'd like him there.
No, it's too cold.
I had a friend from Mexico who was visiting with us when Bush was president, and she was saying, look, the United States stole Texas, which is historically accurate. We want it back. I was like, that's fine, but you have to take Bush. And she was like, ooh.
Well, he's really from Connecticut.
Okay,
Let's be
but-
honest here.
All right, but listen, if you know, I was just trying to get rid of him, Taylor, one way or another.
Okay. Goodbye, Crook.
Well, that was a lot of fun. I think I love this idea. Next time we'll be more organized. Kate, I did sort of imagine a slideshow with categories, but this was a good prototype. And now you've seen the true secret, which is we're mostly riffing this most of the time.
So, Barnstormers, it's been a pleasure. I have to
Yes.
go to bed. Next time it will be earlier and perhaps on a different day. We will do a straw poll amongst people that come on frequently.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure talking with you guys. Kate, Dwayne, Jordy, really enjoyed talking with y'all and hashing it out.
Such a pleasure. You guys were fun. Thanks for normalizing abortion with me.
Can we get that as a t-shirt?
That's a great t-shirt.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Thanks all.
Thank you,
Everybody-
guys.
Bye.
Bye.